Right, how's it going? Before I get to the video, I just want to say I did overlook a couple of things with this plugin. Firstly was the analyzer section, the visual display and how it's showing a before and after of the processing. And also when it comes to using this plugin on single hits, one shots, drum hits, that kind of thing, and how useful it is for that. So I probably will do a short follow-up video to this, but for now, I hope you enjoy the video. Here it is. Right, how's it going? It's me, Shotty 4HF, and it's free plugin time. Now, I've not been able to do one of these videos in a while, so I'm quite excited to share this with you, and it's this, and the name of it is Pancz. I'm not really sure what that means. If you know, let me know in the comments, but I'll go with it. And I was just looking online at the company that makes these plugins, Spectral Plugins, and it's a bit disappointing, a bit of a shame to find out, but they've actually gone out of business, and that is why I think there's 3 plugins that they made, including this one, and that is why now they've made these plugins available for free. And I will say also they are available in VST, VST3, AU and AAX formats, so it is available for Windows and Mac, just to get that out of the way. So what is it? It's a transient designer, or you might hear them referred to as transient shapers. As far as I'm aware, they're the same thing. Now, what does a transient shaper do? Or, firstly, what is a transient? And, the typical way of explaining this is with a snare drum, the hit of the stick, of the drumstick, hitting the drum, that would be the transient of that sound. And then the snares and the sort of the vibration of the drum skin would form the tail, or the release of that sound. So I guess essentially it's it's a sound, it's a short burst of sound energy that only lasts for a small amount of time. Okay, so in perhaps a particular piece of music, the kick drum would be a transient element because it only lasts for a short space of time. I hope that makes sense, and of course, if I've got any of that wrong, please do correct me in the comments. I love talking about this stuff. It might make a bit more sense when we look at the plugin. So here it is, and the way I've got this set up is I've got all of my drums going to a drum bus or a drum mix, and they sound like this. So now I've got the plugin installed on that drum bus, and it's got a really nice visual representation where you can see the waveform passing when it's playing back, and that even helps you to actually see the transients in front of you. So what we can do with this, especially in this mode, now there are of course other transient designers, transient shapers, whatever you want to call them, out there, but this one does have a few additional features, and that's what I want to take a look at. But firstly, let's just go through the basics. So with the drum loop playing through it, I can increase the transients in the sound. You can hear those drum hits actually getting louder, or I can decrease them and really soften the sound like that. Now you can do the same thing with the tail, or the release of the sound. You can bring up the tail and really add some sort of noise in between the transients, or you can tidy it up and shorten the tail, and that is something that I like to do, particularly with hi-hats. Even live drums, hi-hats, hi-hat loops, that kind of thing, I will quite often reach for a transient designer and reduce some of that tail. You can really tidy things up that way. So that's the basics out the way. A couple of additional features in this. Down here we've got limit and soft clip, and we've also got this threshold here that we can bring down. Now I really like this. So if we increase the transients and the sound obviously gets louder, it does have input and output gain, so you could do your sort of gain staging that way and make sure it's normalized, make sure it's the same volume. But with the limit option and the soft clip option, I'll show you what it does. So if we increase the transients, obviously the sound gets louder. With the soft clip mode, we can bring the threshold down, and if we keep going, you can hear it starting to add that distortion from the soft clipping. which is a great way to control peaks. Now, I'm assuming when you're in limit mode and you do the same thing, it's essentially just like a brick wall limiter, and it's just bringing down those peaks. So this is a great way to get some extra volume out of a sound and some extra thickness, because essentially what you can do is make the sound louder and fuller, but bring down the actual peak level so that it's no longer clipping your output, and it can make things more manageable that way. Of course, you can do similar things with limiting in general and compression, but this is an additional feature in here, and I'll just show you what it sounds like with the limit mode. So we can really bring those transients up, but then limit them to reduce that peak level. So that's quite handy to have in there already. And moving on from that, there is this down here, NYC. Now, I did have to kind of look into what this was doing, and as far as I can make out from looking at a few things online, it's basically adding a compressed signal to it and giving an almost kind of parallel compression effect. It's really good to sort of fill out the sound, and I'll just show you what it sounds like quickly. So once we're sort of limiting and we turn up the transients, when I add this in, yeah, it's really sort of filling out the sound with that. So again, that's another additional feature. Moving on to the other side, we've got presence and air, which I'm assuming is basically like a kind of EQ curve, or maybe a high shelf, something like that, but I'll just show you what they sound like when you turn them up, and they do exactly what they say. As you can hear, bringing in that sort of top end, possibly like 7 to 10k, really sort of brightening it up, and the air does the same. From what I can hear, it's a little bit higher up. Now that might be really good on vocals, or any other sound for that matter. I don't really need it for this drum loop that I'm running through it at the moment, but they are there as well. Obviously there's a bypass button, and there is also some presets which I haven't really gone through. 808 squasher, there's brightness, slap, clean and controlled. So there's a lot of presets in there that you can go through as well. They might be helpful. The main thing that I wanted to talk about with this plugin is this section over here where it says multi for multiband. And when we click that, we get these 3 separate bands. Now, the visual representation now changes into an analyzer, which is kind of helpful for this, and I'll show you why in a minute. But essentially what we can do is move these bands around, and whichever band we select, it will affect the transients or the tail in that frequency specific area. So I'll show you what that sounds like now. So for example, this mid frequency band here, if we turn the transients up now, or turn them down, it's only affecting the transients in that frequency area. Now, this is really good for a couple of things. You know, if you've got a drum loop like this and you don't have control over the individual elements, and you want to, say, tidy up the hi-hats but leave the rest of the drum loop alone, so you can do that with this, and I'll show you what that sounds like. So if we play it back and select this top end area here, we can reduce the tail and really tidy those hi-hats up without affecting the rest of the drum sound. Or, you know, in the same way, we could increase the tail and add some sort of a bit more noise to the hi-hats, but again, without affecting the rest of the sound. And that is really handy. But also with this analyzer section here, for example, if we wanted to focus in on the snare only, you can sort of see the snare coming through there, so we can focus on that area, and we can obviously increase or reduce the transient of the snare or the tail. So that's great. Now obviously with these frequency bands, there will be crossovers at some point. I can't really see those, but you can kind of hear it crossing over. I'm not really sure what the crossovers are. Maybe it says in the manual, I'm not sure. So that's it. On a whole, it's a transient designer, but it is also a multiband transient designer. Now, it's not the first. There are other multiband transient designers out there, but I actually quite like this one. And I like the user interface of this one. It looks very nice. And, you know, some of the additional features I haven't got in some of the other transient shapers and designers that I use. So yeah, it's a nice little plugin, and as I say, it's free. And as I say, it's a shame the company has gone out of business. That's very unfortunate. One of the other sort of transient designers that I will often use is the one from Native Instruments, and you know, I will quite often go for this when I want to do that kind of work. But as you can see, this is fairly basic. It's got your attack, your sustain, and that's about it. So to have, especially with the threshold and the limiting and everything else, all in the one plugin, that's actually quite useful, and I will be using this quite a lot. So that's it. If you like this video or you found it useful, please give it a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and it makes making these videos even more worthwhile. If I've missed anything with this plugin, or you've got anything else that you want to let me know about it, please do let me know in the comments. I'd love to read that. As I say, I will leave links to this plugin in the description. Also, if you want to check out the music that I make using these plugins, I will leave links in the description to that as well. If you could check that out, that would be awesome. And that's it. Until the next video, take it easy, stay creative, keep smiling, sound.
Bathing the workers in a constant health-boosting baseline.
If at first you don't succeed, sort your shit out. Right, hold on a second. Yeah, it's a nice little plugin, and as I say, it's free. Certainly a shame that the company Spectral Plugins has... And also, if you want to hear the music that I make using all of these plugins, I will leave links. And that's it. Until the next video. And that's it.